Are we ready? Okay. All right, we'll be starting in a minute.
When Willie sits down. 1 minute is
This regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for July 17th, 2012 will come to order. I'll ask that everyone in the audience stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. It's our pleasure tonight to recognize the winners of the 2012 Springfield Gas System Scholarship. Our Assistant City Manager, Gina Holt, is going to explain how these scholarships came about, and she will do so at this time. Gina?
Thank you. As you know, this board approved allowing the Springfield Gas Department to establish an education scholarship fund, and this is funded through Tennessee Gas Pipeline and El Paso Corporation. And the gas department will be receiving $63,865 a year for public awareness for gas pipeline safety, basically. And part of getting that public awareness out there is to do this scholarship fund. It's for Robertson County high school students, and there were 5 high schools and 5 students that received scholarships, and they will be going to a vocational school, a technical school, or a community college. And the committee based the criteria on their academic achievement, their financial need, and their community involvement. So we had 5 winners, and Sam Andavazo from the Springfield Gas Department will introduce 2 of the scholarship recipients tonight. But it's a great program, we think, and George Hall, the gas director, estimates that the money will go through 2018. So it's a $3,000 scholarship per year for 2 years, and the funds are paid directly to the Educational Institute. So, Sam, would you like
Sam Andavazio would come forward to the podium at my left, and you may invite the winners to come forward when appropriate.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful experience for us to be able to do this, and we appreciate it. And Springfield Gas wishes you all the best of luck. They had some pretty impressive applications, and we just had a really good time picking them things out for them. So unfortunately, we had, like I said, a few that couldn't make it because of other commitments tonight. But if the 2 that we have tonight are from the first one, Matthew Hall from Joe Burns High School. And Taylor Sneed from East Robertson High School. The ones that were not be here tonight was from Greenbrier High School with Shelby Spain, Tyler Smith from Springfield High School, and Diana Ortiz from South Haven Christian High School. And they had some other commitments. We regret that, but we congratulate them.
Hold for the picture. Thank you, Sam, and congratulations to our winners. And now for the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on June 19th and the special meeting of June 26th. Is there a motion that these minutes be approved?
So moved.
Second. In discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So ordered. And now to the legislative portion of our agenda. Item 2.1 concerns ordinance 12-07. This is the third and final reading of an ordinance which amends our zoning ordinance by rescinding ordinance 08-30 in its entirety and section 11-608 in its entirety, and substituting a new section 11-608. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second.
Second.
Any discussion on this final reading? Hearing none, please call the roll, Ms. Murphy.
Snyder? Aye. Head?
Yes.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ellis? Cornell?
Aye.
Mason? Has 7-1.
All right.
7-0.
Now to 2.2, this is a resolution 12-11 authorizing the appropriation of funds for the fiscal year 2012 annual budget for the financial aid of nonprofit, charitable, and nonprofit civic organizations in accordance with section 6-54-111 of TCA. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask Ms. Murphy to call the roll.
Cornell?
Aye.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Head?
Yes.
Snyder? Aye. Mason?
Aye.
Ellis?
Aye.
Shoemaker?
Aye.
Has 7-0.
Okay. And now 2.3 is another resolution. This is Resolution 12-12. This resolution would appoint a department head to the Business Conduct and Ethics Committee for the period July 1st of 2012, concluding with June 30th of 2013. And who is the nomination?
The interim fire chief, Jimmy Hamill.
Did you campaign for this, Mr. Hammond? Okay. Okay. All right. Is there a motion this be
So
approved?
moved.
Duly seconded. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shoemaker?
There-
I didn't get this second.
We didn't
Yeah, I
have
don't
a
think we had a
Excuse me.
second.
I'll second it, but yeah.
Okay. Now we'll call the roll.
Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ellis?
Aye.
Head?
Yes.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Snyder? Aye. Cornell? Mason? Has 7-0.
All right, now as we move to the administrative portion of the agenda, on the second page, I'm going to ask that we have one item that needed to be added to the agenda formally, and that's the extension of a paving contract. We'll hand out copies of that. Okay, Ms. Holt, you want to say something about that?
Okay, this is basically an extension until December of this year for its street repair and maintenance. And they have signed off on it, the company has, and all we need to do is if you concur, then the contract, and I think this is a fairly regular thing, is it not, Mr. Ellis?
Okay, I'm going to ask you now to vote on adding this to the agenda. You're not voting on the contract one way or another, but simply to add it to the agenda. Is there a
Mayor,
motion?
I move that we add this contract to the agenda.
All right, is there a second? Mr. Mason seconds. Any discussion on adding it to the agenda? Hearing none, please call the roll on this addition to the agenda.
Ellis? Mason? Snyder? Shoemaker?
Aye.
Cornell?
Aye.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Head?
Yes.
Has 7-0.
All right, now, that's the addition. Now let's vote on the matter itself. Is there a motion we consider this now?
So moved.
A second, Mr. Mason. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our city recorder to call the roll.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Head?
Yes.
Cornell?
Aye.
Ellis? Mason? Shoemaker?
Aye.
Snyder? Has 7-0.
Okay. And now I'm going to, well, we've got one more here. I'm going to move an item up. If our illustrious manager, director of Parks and Recreation, Mr. Tony Phelps, would come to the podium, first of all, I want to say something nice about him. He says, we have had the pleasure since last Thursday of hosting the Dixie Youth baseball tournament, the Ozone tournament for the state of Tennessee. Our Department of Parks and Recreation has worked tirelessly for about 9 months in preparation for this event. It's gone wonderfully. It got a little too damp on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but we had the farmers and everybody else praying for rain, and you praying for some dry spells, so we kind of got a little of both and all that.
Okay.
But the point is, do you know how many people visitors we brought in?
I know Thursday night at the center, we fed right at 800.
Okay. And that was a wonderfully planned event. Our motels are full, our restaurants are doing well with this, gas stations, markets, etc. Probably a little shopping beside that as well. So I want to thank you for the manner in which this has been carried out. I know Grace Baptist Church served as a volunteer organization for support for this. We appreciate that so very much as well.
And it couldn't be going any better. 3 out of the 6 teams that are still alive are staying still in our hotels.
Great.
They're playing out there right now. Hence, that's why I dressed up for y'all. It's going outstanding.
Well, I want to use that to say thank you. I talked to a gentleman last Thursday at the kickoff event who had a position with the state organization, and he said, now there are a lot of other teams here tonight on that Thursday night who are bidding for next year's tournament, and they are in awe of what your Parks and Recreation Department has done. They've got a tough act to follow. So thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
And after that, we're going to move the fireworks discussion up 3 notches on the schedule. So,
Well, at the rate that they've been hitting them out of the park, we've been shooting them off one at a time.
oh, is that it? All right. Tell us where we are on that matter, and then we'll take the appropriate action.
Okay, after talking to Pyro Shows, they, by contract, could have kept the entire first deposit that we put in. They agreed to refund 25% of that money back to us. Basically to help cover their expenses for renting trucks, putting the show together and everything. So that's what we're out currently. It's just 25% of the show.
Okay.
I have not heard anything but positive comments for those of us that were speaking about the cancellation. I still feel it was the appropriate decision at the time. It's kind of a shame that a week later we got 3 inches of rain, but it really didn't help us, you know. And we've just got some decisions to make. One, do we cut our losses and shoot them again next year? Do we discuss possibly shooting them at another date? I don't have a final cost for that because there will be some expenses. They're going to have to pay manpower and a truck and everything else to, you know, get the show set up. Do we take the money that we saved and let y'all decide to spend it somewhere else? I'm probably going to regret saying that. Or do we take and put the fireworks show that we've got setting at Pyro Shows and take the money that we've got budgeted for this year and have an even larger show next year? Now, I've heard all kinds of dates thrown around.
If you rescheduled it for this year.
To reschedule it. And it is in my opinion that I hate to see us shoot thousands and thousands of dollars worth of fireworks for a few hundred people. The 4th of July is established. They expect us to shoot them. And, you know, if we decide on another date, then we've got, of course, myself and my staff, you know, I've got a few planning on going on vacation, which I think that's the least of the decision-making process. But we're going to have a massive ad blitz if we decide to shoot them another night out there. We really are.
So your recommendation as the department head who's in charge of this is to wait until next year? Is that it?
I think it was worth $2,400 not to set 300 or 400 acres on fire.
Yes.
I don't argue with the decision. In the circumstances where our show is located, we've got too much danger to adjacent property owners.
Absolutely.
A lot of land, forest, as well as a lot of acres under cultivation, so.
And for the record, there were 7 other cities
There were 7 other
that
cities that
canceled,
canceled.
including Hopkinsville at the last day as they were.
Hopkinsville canceled theirs while they were unloading the truck,
Gee, we gave 3 days' notice.
okay?
All right.
But Pyro shows, they were very, very gracious, and we've got a great relationship with them, where they could have charged us a lot more money.
All right. Is there, I can go around and ask each person what they think, or I can entertain a motion for some action on this, either accepting the director's recommendation or something else that you prefer.
I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept his recommendation and wait until next year.
All right, is there a second? Second. Duly seconded. All right, any discussion?
Comment,
Mr. Shoemaker, I
Is
see you.
that just waiting until next year with the regular budgeted amount and not doing a rollover or anything like
At
that?
this
Right.
point, that would be what
It is, because that was last year, last fiscal year.
Anyway, yeah.
We've got $9,900 in the budget this year for next July. So
You know,
it's
if
just
you were
going
to
on.
decide that, we would sign the new contract in January, and we can discuss the show at that time.
Okay, the motion is to just forget about it for this fiscal year and deal with it then as we normally do. Does everybody understand the motion? Is there other thoughts? Are there other thoughts on the matter? Everybody understand the motion? Please call the roll.
Mason. Ellis. Shoemaker. Cornell.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Has 7-0.
All right. We'll go back now to 3.1 on the administrative agenda. This is the monthly adjustment of retail electric rates by Springfield Electric due to a corresponding wholesale fuel cost adjustment by TVA. Mr. Gardner, and that percentage this month?
About 1.5% decrease.
Decrease. Good. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that.
We'll vote on that.
All right, is there a motion that we act on that? Mr. Mason, you want to make that motion? And let's
Second.
have a second? Okay.
Second.
And second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Snyder.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Shoemaker.
Aye.
Ellis. Cornell.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Has 7-0.
Okay, 3.2, the adjustment now of monthly gas rates for the gas department. Mr. Hall? Up almost 1%. Okay, 98 hundredths. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Shane, did you make that motion? And the second?
Second.
Okay. Now, any discussion on the gas rates? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Cornell.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis. Shoemaker.
Aye.
Has 7-0.
Okay, we've talked about the fireworks, which is 3.3. We move to 3.4. This is to discuss and possibly take action on the draft for a drought management plan, which has been prepared by the Water and Wastewater Division. Mr. Lemasters, are you going to speak to that? Okay.
Well, really what, and if you have any questions, there's no action needed tonight. We all hope that you had a chance to read it. If you have questions or anything about the plan, but what our hope is next month, come back with a public hearing. And the department has sent to TDEC the draft plan, and it's been going back and forth, and they've been making some comments and revisions or whatever. And so hopefully by the August meeting, we'll be able to have the public hearing and the resolution for your approval.
So it's still a work in progress?
It's definitely a work in progress.
All right, and when the finished product is here, then the public hearing can be scheduled. So-
At the August meeting, and then the resolution could be approved after that.
Okay.
And we should have TDEC approval at that time.
Okay. Well, without
now-
objection, then we'll just wait for discussion then at that time. And that meeting would be on...
21st.
On the 21st, the third, of course, third Tuesday.
But now, if you have questions for Mr. Lee Masters, now that's
But if
fine.
there's something now you want to
I
ask,
just want to ask my draft status. Where are we on the draft, our status?
this plan,
Oh,
where
can-
are we on the draft itself?
There have been several conversations and letters between us and the Tennessee Division of Water Supply. And each of them has had comments. This last letter had 3 comments, and I responded to all 3 of those, reflected in here. So there should be no more comments, I'm saying.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on now to 3.5. The Chamber of Commerce is scheduling its annual pep rally and adding movie night to it. This will be scheduled for August the 10th from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., requesting the closure of the west side of the courthouse square and the adjoining portions of 6th Avenue and Locust Street to be closed off. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Now any discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Ellis. Mason.
Aye.
Snyder. Shoemaker. Cornell.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Has 7-0.
Okay, now to, down to paving, okay. To the consent portion of the agenda, there's only one item on there tonight, and that's Springfield Gas Department's request to approve the annual bid for gas materials. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Second. No discussion required on the consent portion of the agenda. Motion's been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Cornell.
Aye.
Ellis. Mason.
Aye.
Shoemaker.
Aye.
Snyder. Has 7-0.
All right. Now, the next item, we had a memorandum from our Assistant City Manager pertaining to the story that was in the Tennessean Sunday before last about gang activity, which quoted extensively Chief Thompson and Alderman Hubbard. Tonight, Chief Thompson is with us, of course, Alderman Hubbard as well. And I'm going to ask Chief Thompson if he'll come to the podium and give a summary of his thoughts on this matter after being in Springfield for about 6 months. And at the conclusion of that, each alderman will have the chance to ask you a question about it if they have any comment, and I'll let Mr. Hubbard speak briefly on his comments as well. Go ahead, Chief.
I appreciate that.
You're
Thank you. After picking up the Sunday paper last week and seeing that article on the front page, I thought that I needed to spend some time with you folks, giving you a little bit of clarifications, also a little bit of an understanding about plans and where we're going, what we plan to do. So I'm going to address a couple of those things for you, and then we'll open it up for questions and kind of go from there. First of all, the article itself on the gang activity, the best way for me to say this is that it was a very well-written and well-researched article. I'm not aware of anything in it that was faulty or anything in it that was untrue. I thought that it was a little over the top as far as picking up the paper, and I think that there's a little bit of a fear factor that kicked in when I read it. But aside from that, I think that most of the information in there was very true. It's a very well-written article. And I don't fault people for telling me the truth. Now, I've heard from a number of people, as I'm sure you have, but I'll tell you how my conversations have run for the most part. Most of them have started out with, "I didn't know," and then the next comment was, "What can I do to help?" Well, I consider those to be good things, because anytime we're informing people, we're educating people, that's a good thing. And the fact that people want to get involved and people want to help and people want to make a difference, I consider that to be a good thing. I know that the first step in solving a problem is acknowledging and recognizing the problem. So we are there as far as recognizing the problem. I do want to make a couple of comments and clarifications, however, before I get into plans. One is that I do want to point out that it's not all bad news. Gangs in Springfield are a relatively new phenomenon. This is not Chicago where we've got multi-generational gangs and we've got something entrenched in our fabric. This is something that's a new phenomenon. The fact that it's new makes it easier to eradicate and easier to deal with. The fact that we're a smaller city makes it easier to deal with because these tend to be focused in given areas. And again, being in a smaller city, we're not like a Chicago or for that matter Miami or LA where it's just an overwhelming problem. We can make a difference with fewer resources than they could in larger cities. Also in a smaller city, a small number of people make a big impact. You know, the rash of high-profile crimes we had within the last couple of months, high-profile robberies, murders, and things like that, well, a very small number of people actually committed those acts. So again, it's something we can make a difference in faster being in a small community. And I also want to point out that the impact of gang activity is not across the board. It doesn't affect everyone the same way. It's not something where you should be concerned every day when you get up and go to work or go to school or go shopping. However, keep in mind there are some citizens in this community that it's an everyday fear and everyday occurrence in their world and in their life until we get a better grip on this. And if left unchecked, if we don't do something about it successfully, these things tend to grow and they spill over into the rest of the community. So it is something that does need to be addressed. And I also point out that there are social dynamics behind the formation of gangs. Some of those extend beyond the police department. There are things we're going to have to partner with other organizations. I'm going to mention those in just a minute in more detail. But we're talking educational failure is a major factor. I've never seen a straight-A student that was a gang member, okay? There are certain ties and things we can look at that we can make a difference, but it's not just policing. It's education, unemployment, poverty. It's a whole variety of things that we need to address. And as I wrapped up in my email to the Assistant City Manager, it should be a call to action, not a call to fear. It's not a cause for us to go out and start fearing the whole world or people who are different from us. It's a reason, however, for us to want to take action and make a difference. So those are my clarifications. I hope that's clear. As far as plans, where do we go from here? I've already sent officers to a couple of different schools dealing specifically with gangs. We have a meeting coming up, a conference coming up next week. I'm not attending it, but I've got other people attending it. The Tennessee Gang Investigators Association. We also have another school that's coming up first week of August dealing with how to effectively deal with gangs in the community, that sort of thing. So we've got to first of all educate ourselves to make sure that our strategies are grounded, they're going to be effective. We are not in this battle by ourselves. I've already spent a good bit of time with TBI, with an organization called ROCIC, with the Gang Investigators Association, with Robertson County, and with others throughout this area. We have lots of people that are on board and are on our side and want to be part of the solution. And that's important that we do that and make them part of the solution. Where do we go? We're developing strategies right now to minimize the impact of the gangs and to address them from a criminal justice perspective as well as a social perspective. Some things we've already started. We're getting the criminal justice agencies on board, Springfield, Robertson County, TBI, the district attorney, judges, because there are enhancements to gang-related crimes. In other words, they can get higher penalties, that sort of thing. So we need to have all those people on board. I've already asked for a meeting with DCS, Division of Children's Services here, because quite frankly, they're the source of some of our gang people when they get relocated to our area. We need the schools involved, and we need to be looking at both after-school programs as well as the early learning centers and prior to getting in school. We need to do something about the graffiti and something that's ongoing as far as the graffiti, and I do appreciate, I know that Margot's here and her folks have got the Graffiti Eradication Day scheduled for Saturday morning, and I think that's a great step in the right direction. I'll also thank our city engineers over here. I know that Alan has had his people eradicate at least 2 different problems we've had just in the last week. We had gang signs up on King Drive, and then we had some tagging over on 20th Street. So the city is doing its part, and we're encouraged that other people are doing theirs. We need citizens who live in these affected areas to be involved. We need them to step up to the plate and say, this is my neighborhood, I'm not willing to accept this. And they've been very instrumental recently, especially in the Bransford project, doing some things there, feeding kids and that sort of thing. Those are coming from local churches, people living in the community. And we're going to need volunteers down the road working with youth and working with educational programs and tutoring. And we need to push the idea of conflict resolution that's nonviolent. So we have a lot of work to do. We've met with apartment managers. We have met with housing managers as far as how they screen their people, as far as cleaning up their properties, how to deal with those folks that come into their properties that have gang relationships. So we've got a lot of different things that we're already doing. I can give you probably more detailed strategies perhaps at our next meeting, but right now we're in the process of putting these together, finding out from others what works the best, and then forging forward with making those things happen. So that's a lot of information in a little bit of time, so I'm open for questions.
All right, I'm going to start with Alderman Head to my far left. Bruce, ask whatever's on your mind.
Chief, are there any resources that you're lacking from the city or this board that would help you in this?
I'm not prepared to say right now that we need any specific resources at this moment. I think that long term, I think we may want to look at some things, and I'm talking about a couple of months down the road, we may want to come back to you with some specific suggestions, and those will be probably more social in nature than criminal justice in nature. Because again, the dynamics behind these things are more than just policing. But I'm not aware of any specific resources that we need right now.
Okay. I just asked if there is something lacking that you asked us.
I appreciate that. I'll make sure that we do so.
Shoemaker.
Chief, I've heard some commentary through the community regarding, for lack of a better word, the sometimes lax nature of prosecution that's being pursued by things that are out of our control, since we're joined in the Clarksville district. People getting off too lightly, or deals being cut out of that office, or just a general lack of interest in Springfield. Are you seeing that, or have you been here long enough to make a legitimate or valid view on that?
I'll tell you that relative to this issue, that I have talked with our district attorney for this area, our prosecutor for this area. I've also talked to some of the judges. And one of the things I'm planning to do is get all of them together to talk about these specific issues, because it requires a variety of things to make it work. The enhanced penalties, like for gangs, that sort of thing. The police have to prepare the cases. They have to document the details and all that they need to make that work for prosecution. The prosecutor then needs to be able to present that case. So he's got to have the details and documents to present the case. And then the judge has to understand the responsibility at that level, what the judge is required to do, and what the flexibility is, and what the judges can and should do. So it's a matter of getting all of these people working together. I have not seen any coordination at that level when it comes to the gang-related activity. So if I focus on these particular issues, that's something, and I've already talked to Joel, our local prosecutor, and I've already talked to one of the judges, and we're going to sit down together and go over this. So we've got police, prosecutors, and judges, and everybody knows what's expected of them to successfully go after these cases.
Good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ellis.
I just have one question. When we talked, in reading the article, it was not only about Springfield, it was about a number of small cities or medium-sized cities around Nashville. Do we have organized gangs in our city or in our county, or are most of them an extension from Nashville gangs or metropolitan gangs? Is that a good question?
Well, it's a good question. It's kind of a complex question, because what typically happens is that, let me give you an example. Nashville, we know, has certain gang problems. They recognize that. So there's no real question on that issue. If a youngster gets in trouble in Nashville, for example, and they're looking for a place to relocate that child, and they're looking for locations that don't have gang influences, then they may be inclined to send them to a place like Robertson County. If we haven't been reporting the gang activity, then it shows up as a 0, and they say they don't have any gangs in Robertson County, so we can send them over there. And so what ends up happening, you end up spreading the wealth, if you will. You end up spreading it to other locations. We have some of the taggings and some of the information we've got here locally. We have some gangs that are very well established, national level gangs. Sur 13, Serenos 13, Latin Kings, Bloods, Pyros. Every time Tony said pyro, you know, I kind of go like this because pyro means something different to me. So we do have extensions of those national gangs that have found their way here. We also have local gangs, which are some of the local wannabes that adopt, you know, their own local neighborhood, and they come up with whatever associations with their own neighborhood. So the fact is we do have some of those that have extended here from other areas, nationally organized gangs that have come here from other areas. But again, very small numbers at this point and very loosely organized, which those are good things. That makes them more vulnerable, which works well for us.
Okay. I'm going to start with Ms. Snyder and then come back to you, Ms. Snyder.
With YCAP and all the programs that we have through United Way and Courtney going into, through the Y, going into the alternative school to try to save some of these children, I think that we need to sit down with some of these good programs that are already established here. We need to go ahead and pick the date, quit talking about it, meet together, and see what we can all do together. It's not just one neighborhood. You know, it's happening over here, so it's not affecting me. But then I sit at my desk and I listen to a lady who's lived in her neighborhood forever, and she tells that she's so scared. She can't go out of her house after dark because there's gang activity or drug activity on her front porch, but she's too scared to tell anybody about it. And we just have to keep talking to these good folks and telling them and reassuring them that they're not going to be, their name's not going to be released when they call you. We know how your program works, but everybody else in Springfield may not know.
Well, you're right on target with those comments. There are people today trying to make a difference. You know, I've been helping out with the Bransford Revitalization Project, and that's a good example there of a lot of folks who are coming together. A lot of folks have come in, including the Y and others, that have said, we want to be part of the solution. What can we do to help out? And we've had a number, especially in the last week, we've had a number of organizations come forward, including the Chamber again, that have come forward and said, hey, we want to do something. What can we do? So there are a lot of resources out there. It's a matter of determining where those resources are and making them available to the people that need them.
We've been trying to do this at the Y for a number of years, and it's time that we had some help to move this forward.
Well, my experience too is that geographically we need to locate the programs where the problems are, where the people are. So we need to have a central location for these programs. That's why I like the Bransford Center so much, because it's a great location. If we can get that up and operational and at the point where it needs to be, we can run programs for the Y, we can run after-school programs, we can have United Way. There are all kinds of things we can bring to that. We've had the companies that do parental counseling and teaching them how to be good parents. I've talked to Bob over with the career services. I got all kinds of people that are dying to come in and make a difference. They want to be part of the solution. We have to have the right spot for that to happen. Because we tell these kids, we tell these families, you're going to have to go a couple of miles this way, a couple of miles that way. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to reach the same people.
I don't think I realized how scared these folks are, and they're not going to talk about the crimes that are being committed. And we've got to do a better job of educating that we're not going to tell their names when they call the police department.
Well, it's important for Crime Stoppers, and I also had a meeting with some of the African American pastors a couple of weeks ago, and I had somebody in the audience that asked me about that, and and said, well, you know, people are scared and this and that. And I said, well, I understand that. I said, and sometimes, because every solution I gave them, they said, well, that won't work. And this is why. And finally I said, well, you know, sometimes you got to wait till people are more angry than they are scared. When they get more angry than they are scared, then they'll come forward and they'll say, you can't do this on my street. You can't do this in my yard. You can't do this with my grandchildren, my children. You can't do this in my community. But it takes a lot of people making that commitment.
And we all have a huge investment in our properties, our businesses. We've got to make sure that they can continue.
Well, and just think of the resource that you've got there. You've got so many children in this community, and many of those children, quite frankly, many don't speak English very well. They start out behind in school. They just get further behind in school. They group them together in classrooms where the remedial kids are together, and then we wonder how we get gangs. Okay, well, we've got a social dynamic that just creates a problem there. If we get these kids prepared before they go to school, if they get after-school programs and tutoring, and we get people to promote those things, you can turn those things around. You can make a difference. And in a community the size of Springfield, we can make a significant difference in a short period of time. So I'm on board with that.
Chief, I've been driving school bus a few years, and
Yes,
I
sir.
see a whole lot of unwanted activity goes on. Not as much maybe on my bus as it is on others. And if you do something wrong, you ask one, they are not going to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask them why. I said they don't want to be a snitch. But, you know, soon we'll get to the bottom of it. But we've had, last 2 years, we've had the county that come to one of our in-service to try to tell us or teach us how to pick up on drug activity and, you know, and gang and all that. I don't know if it really helped, but will you be interested in doing something like that?
On every occasion that's available, we will make sure that either I'm there or someone else is there to encourage people to participate and be part of the solution. That's why we have Crime Stoppers. That's why we do many things that we do, is we want to be able to teach people. As a matter of fact, something that I'm working on right now is I would like to see about putting together the Citizens Academies that I know that they used to do here some years ago. I'd like to go back to that because I would like for the elected officials to get to spend time out here in a police car, see what it looks like on a Friday night or a Saturday night. It's a different world. But I'd also like members of the public to be able to do the same thing. I think it would be an enlightening experience, and you build those bonds, you build those trusts between people. That's when they'll talk to you. Once they trust you, they know you, then they're willing to talk to you. But those bonds aren't there today, and we've got to forge those. We've got to make those happen. So I'm available any occasion, any group you want me to talk to, I will be there. If I can't be there, I'll have somebody else there, but we will make that happen.
Okay, because like I say, we this happened last 2 years at one I've in service. And see, we reached a whole lot of students in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to show us, you know, how to identify gangs and stuff like that, but I've heard talk of a lot of on the bus, you know. I don't know enough to snitch on, as they call it, tell them or whatever, but I try to keep my ears open on it. I don't know if it's doing good or not, but I try.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hubbard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was also a co-facilitator in this article. I must put this out first. I am a 32-year master level psychologist, sociologist who have worked the streets of Springfield for 32 years. All of the social dynamics that the chief indicated, that's what I've been doing on a daily basis for 32 years. I've blown the whistle for the last 18 years because of the dynamics that would create gang activity had manifested. I started, and thank God for the Springfield Housing Authority. We started Project Lot back in 1997. Thank you, Mr. Head and Mr. Batson. You all was key components in helping me out with the program when I needed things. But this was called a homicide prevention program. The killing, the deviancy come out of illiteracy, poverty, and complacency from those who know better, who won't be educated to the matter, and let it fester. I have been charged, I must say this real nicely, that I was selling the city down the river. Well, let me tell you something. And I got a witness here. On a national level, I sell Springfield, Tennessee. I have not been sitting up here 16 years or better. I love this city and promote the growth of the city. But I do not want an omission of a cancerous problem that extends from Rose Hill all the way out to Pine Circle omitted because that put a black eye on the city. Yes, I know sometimes, you know, in my debating situation, putting out information, people don't want to hear the truth. But the truth is we have a great city, but we have to work on those dynamics. Now I'm so glad that we have a conversation and a dialogue is being established. As I quoted in the paper, let's put our money, our talents, and our times together and we can eradicate this. This is not just an exclusive Black or African American problem. It's not an exclusive lower poor white problem. It's not an exclusive Mexican American problem, but it's a problem for all people who love Springfield. Now the key driving point behind this is the failing illiteracy that we tolerate. Poor school systems, not demanding that we have good school system to adequately train our citizens. Functionally literate parents produce functionally literate children. Crack-affected parents produce crack-affected children. And to push them in a corner and leave them alone is not the answer. Every citizen in Springfield ought to be infuriated about this. And I'm glad we have this conversation. No, I'm not just running off the mouth to be a lightning rod, as some folk would say, but I got big shoulders because I love people, period. And so I thank you, Chief. But two components that we're not understanding in this city. Punitive approach is not the answer. You put him in jail, he's gonna lay down 3 or 4 months, he's gonna come back and recruit 300 or 400 and teach them the same thing. Prevention and intervention. We need to give up money, time, and talents. You have people in this town who are specialists in this. You cannot just send these kids, all kids, to these YMCA or after-school programs because you got psychological and sociological behavior factors. One of the major components, the driving component, is the antisocial personality. Am I in the right corner, Chief?
Yes, sir.
That personality causes children to resent authoritative figure, resent rules. You just can't take them to Sunday school, hit them on the head, or put them in a corner. We have allowed, since crack hit Springfield in 1989, amen, has created this monstrous crack baby, dysfunctional baby, misbehaved baby, and now we have parents, understand, who came out of that system who have these kids in our system. So we need to face a reality and come out of our ivory tower thinking. We have a beautiful, and I heard a good old boy tell me a story about the urban city and the small town close to it. See, the small town, the big town is like a whale. Metro is like a whale. And Metro clamped down on this. So the minnows, or the small fish, decided to come our way. You got to understand, you're 30 miles from an urban center. We have to wake up and understand Johnny, Mary, and Joe is emulating what's coming out of the urban city. And it's not restricted just to Rose Hill and Southtown. So we have to understand that. And I got one more minute, I'm shut up there, okay? So my appeal, you can get mad at me all you want to because I got big shoulders. That's what the 82nd Airborne taught me. I got big shoulders. But get angry, as Jesus said. Sin not, but do something. Because regardless of what you say, and we're in the Bible Belt, and every one of us say we're a Christian, greater love has no man than this, to lay down his life for his friend. Okay? So let's show some of our Christianity and get busy. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard, and to all of you for your comments. Chief Thompson, thank you for calling this serious matter to our attention, and we look forward to partnering with you and with the whole community and trying to address the problem. So thank you.
Thank you.
While he's taking his seat, I want to say that, it was rather ironic on the Sunday that this article hit the newspaper. It's always good when you come out of the house on Sunday morning, grab the paper, if you stay off the front page. Well, I thought I'd better glance at it before I went to Sunday school, because that's when you usually get asked what's going on. So I did glance at it, and I thought, oh my gosh. So I look at that, and I guess the thing that concerned me most, after I read it all through, reread the article thoroughly, and then looked at the table of statistics at the end of it, that there's no denying we have some potential problems in this area. We've all seen the graffiti. We know about what our police department deals with crime all the time. But it did bother me that things seem to be somewhat put that the statistics were not reflective of what was actually said in the article. Robertson County showed 7 gang-related activities, the entire county, over the 10-year period of those stats. Wilson County showed 10. Guess what? Williamson County had 200. Murray County, Columbia alone, had 114 in 1 year. And that's not throwing any stones at them. This problem is not, the thrust of the article was simply this, that gang activity is not restricted to Metro or to any of Memphis or any other large metropolitan area. It seeps out, and it has seeped out, and it's part of our fabric now, unfortunately. So it does need to be dealt with, and I assure you that the police department will be doing everything it can and partnering with the community, and it's going to have the support of this Board of Mayor and Aldermen. But I do think those things need to be put in perspective. I don't think there needs to be panic. But I think it simply needs to follow some of the things that we have pointed out actively as a board for particularly the last couple of years. We had a summit meeting, if you will, with the school board on April of last year, talking about the problems that we face in the city schools. The city schools, the makeup is quite different from the schools in the county, but that's no reason we can't do a better job than we're doing in educating children. The resources of the system seem to have been not equally distributed, and as you've read in another full-page article in the Tennessean about the federal government coming in to take a look at what's going on in that respect, there are some serious concerns that we have in trying to get our school systems back to what they were, and it can be done. But that is an integral part of the whole problem that we face. Another one is too much rental housing.
Amen.
Too much public housing.
Right.
And too many structures that are not properly maintained. Since, I don't know how far we've gone back, the figures that I've seen, we have torn down as a city or had torn down about 500 structures since Mr. Nutting's been here, in recent years, we're averaging something like 50 or 60 a year. Am I pretty close on that, George? That we are either tearing down or having the owners to tear down because they've gone beyond what can be reasonably repaired. Beg your pardon?
Gave me a list this morning,
Okay.
and we have taken down 39 of these dilapidated, substandard, dangerous houses this year.
Okay, well,
This
that's
calendar
probably,
year.
well, that's great for the first 6 months. So you see what has been done. These type of situations, substandard housing, densely populated, a densely populated city. You wouldn't believe, but we have 16,440 people in 12 square miles.
Yep.
And I'm told it puts us as probably one of the most densely populated cities in Tennessee, Little Springfield, if you will. But yet we have so much to be proud of. Steps were taken that were bold back in the 90s when the city worked with various organizations and the chamber, and lots of people got involved and built a new hospital, built a YMCA. The city built a golf course. All of these things that we were told by the chamber and others were things that we needed to do to attract more middle-class families to our community. We continue to fight this battle. The school system's part of it. The housing situation's another part of it. And crime is a part of it. And it all works together. It's all entwined. But that doesn't mean that we're not actively involved, but we do need some cheerleaders from time to time. It's awfully easy to pass a story down that's something bad that's happened. When we do, and this was the irony of that Sunday when the article was published in the Tennessean, on that afternoon, I, like some others in this audience, was at the Grand Ole Opry House watching Springfield High's show choir and all the elements of it not only performing before the National Federation of High School Sports Associations, which is the high school equivalent of the NCAA. The TSSAA was hosting the group. We went there to hear our, in my case, grandchildren singing, and to hear Lisa Whitworth's wonderful chorus, and the dance groups and all that. When we got there, we found out not only were they performing, they were hosting, if you will, the opening general session for that group. Lucas Morton was the MC. Other students sang the national anthem. Somebody else did a solo. There was another solo done. They introduced the president of the National Federation of High School Athletic Associations. A video had been done on Springfield High School showing a typical day in Springfield High School, in classes, in laboratories, on the athletic field, all of that, putting it together to put a good face on this community. We have a good face, and we need to make it brighter and believe in ourselves, acknowledging the problems that have been pointed out, and that's not to deny that they exist, but we've got to believe in what we're doing too. Now I'm going to conclude by letting our Assistant City Manager do her report for tonight.
And it will be brief. We were supposed to get back with you tonight about some solutions from Gresham Smith and Partners on the Queen Anne Court drainage problem in the sinkhole. And we had a meeting with Gresham Smith and Partners, and they proposed about 4 different solutions, and after the meeting, they were tasked to go back and come up with a couple more. So we're not quite to the point that we have something to present to the board. However, I can tell you that it's not going to be cheap, and we're probably looking at anywhere from a couple $100,000 up to $1 million.
What did I say?
So, with that said, and it's complex, we would highly recommend that you all have a work session in the next couple of weeks prior to our August meeting, if possible, to look at this, because it's a very complex project, and it's very costly. And so if you all could come up with a night for a work session, it would be greatly appreciated.
All right, there's 5 weeks between these meetings, the way it falls this time. The midpoint would be the 7th. We try to stay on Tuesday. Would that work? I'm looking to my right. Does that
Yes.
work, James?
What day?
The 7th.
Of,
Throwing that out,
August.
of August, yes, sir, I'll be here.
Okay. Willie, you okay with that?
7 o'clock, 7:30, 7.
7 o'clock,
Okay. I get it.
Jerome?
yeah.
Shane?
That's Tuesday, right?
Yes. Bruce, are you okay with that? We'll shoot for the 7th at 7, okay? Can we remember that?
Okay, that's great, appreciate that. And then Alan Ellis is going to just briefly update you. You know, we started the bulky waste and junk collection on June 29th, and we will be having a public hearing, I think, at the August meeting. But if Alan would just give a brief update status about how it's going so far since June 29th.
We started July 1 and went over the entire city, collecting all the junk they could find and giving letters to people who had junk out. So in July the 5th, after they completed that, we started our brush pickup. And during that period, every time they saw a trash or illegal trash left, they would give a letter to the people and would talk to the people. So since that time, we've had 72 residents that have been given letters that have been cleared up. So we've been real tickled to that they have gone back and cleaned their sites up without any problem. And at the present, we only have 6 that we have problems with. Now, we have found 2 illegal dump sites, but really, it's really doing a lot better than what we expected at this point.
Well, thank you for that report. All right, anything further from anyone? Excuse me.
One more thing, and I'm sorry, just wanted to update you on something that we found out today along with the Chamber of Commerce. The building at 719 South Main Street, and this is the picture, the wall that faces the Commerce Union Bank, the Coca-Cola, the Chamber contacted Coca-Cola. As you know, it's got a Coca-Cola logo on it. And so they wanted to dress the building up, and they were going to paint the entire wall, repaint the logo exactly as it is. It's a historic symbol logo here. And Coca-Cola has agreed to pay up to $1,500, or actually they're going to contribute $1,500 towards painting this wall. And what they're going to do is have another logo that's new, that's being developed now on Experience Downtown Springfield, something like that, to promote the downtown shops, restaurants, the merchants. And so it would have that type of logo and then this Coca-Cola logo. And on top of that, they were very excited about it. This is in Charlotte, the Charlotte office. There's going to be an open house on the 23rd of August, and they want to send some people, they want to send products, they want to work with the press because they have connections, so they want to talk to the local media, the Nashville media, about this project. Of course, it helps them, and it also helps the city of Springfield. So this is some good news again, and we're just excited. This will be the first one in the state of Tennessee. Apparently, they have done this in other states. And we do have some other Coca-Cola logos on buildings, which I found today. And of course, we used to have the bottling plant here, so they were kind of interested in that as well. So that was kind of good news, but what the city, they want our blessing, and there will be an agreement that we need to sign saying that everything, this sign, when it's repainted, and it's actually, that's all it is just repainting a historic sign, that it's okay with our sign ordinance, so we just bless it in that way, and we will be considered a partner along with Coca-Cola. So that should be coming up within the next few weeks. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you, and Ms. Murphy for ably filling in for our 2 missing colleagues here at the table. Anybody else have anything they need to bring up before we adjourn?
Yes, you maybe want to brief us on the contract on the college? Should we talk about that?
I don't think there's anything really to address.
Okay.
We're trying to wrap that project up, so
And we're going to kind of spruce up that entrance also.
well, that's part of it, and the contract project should be closed probably by the 1st of August if it's still on track. David?
At Vanderbilt Spin?
Say again, please, sir?
At Vanderbilt Spin will be spruced up, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
as long as there's not too much orange on it. Meeting adjourned.